Between Heidelin and Zodiark, there stands a primitive protoplace propagating paranoia without proper peer review. You find yourself in a narrowing hallway with a cold voice compelling you to subscribe. Either you have imbibed somnus from the palm of a mammal jar, or else you have entered the Umbral zone. Hello everyone, I'm Ethys, and I hope you brought a spare pair of pants. As per a request I received a few weeks ago, we are going to be talking today about Edda and A. I'm going to qualify this video by saying that Yoshida told us after the release of 2.3 that Edda's reappearance would depend entirely on her popularity within the community, which indicates to me that at her last appearance there were almost certainly no concrete plans regarding how her story would actuate. And while I'm going to later speculate about her future and think of ways it could tie into the greater story, it is going to be just that, speculation. If anyone has any ideas regarding how they would like to see this character in future content, whether they be similar or completely different to my thoughts, please leave a comment below so we can all have a good discussion. Now, on face value, the story of Edda and A seems akin to that of Orpheus and Eurydice. The hero, in this case heroine's, lover has been taken prematurely, and unwavering dedication and passion gives the champion resolve to challenge any odds and brave into the underworld itself, if only to bring back their bonny dearest. For anyone who is unfamiliar with the tale, in the Greek tradition, Orpheus enters the Stygian realm under the protection of Apollo and charms Cerberus with his lyre. Hades conditionally surrenders Eurydice, that Orpheus would not once look back before leaving the underworld to see that she was following, or else she would be lost to him forever. Orpheus's faith wavers within moments of crossing the threshold, and he glances back to see his wife's shadow being dragged back to Hades. Orpheus then calls for death upon his lyre. Wild beasts tear him apart that he might be reunited with Eurydice, but his head is taken by the Muses for a boombox. The Middle English rendition of King Orfeo differs in a few ways, most notably that Orfeo goes into the forest and has sex with a bunch of different animals for a few years before he decides to go and find his wife, who has been, in this case, kidnapped by fairies. So Edda's character does make a moderate nod to Orpheus, but I want to make it perfectly clear that the relationship between Edda and A is not what it seems, and certainly not what she would have it to be. To understand it properly, we must look back over our earlier encounters with Avir's doomed party of adventurers. When we first arrived outside Sestasha, we found ourselves privy to an exchange between Edda and Avir that seemed anything but doting and reciprocative. Edda has run back from town to buy potions, and all that Avir has for her is that "You've only ever been as useful as the contents of your pockets, the gods know you can barely heal a scratch." It seems already from the outside that there is no romantic relationship between the two of them, and that any adoration Edda feels is probably one-sided. We cross paths with this party once again outside the Tamtara Deepcroft, and upon returning to the Carline Canopy, we witness an argument between the three surviving adventurers, revealing that Avir had been slain within the Deepcroft, owing to a combination of his brashness in pushing ahead out of her range, and Edda's own healing skills being insufficient to compensate. The group disbands, and Leovin directly tells Edda to stop carrying Avir's head around with her, an incessantly creepy thought, but one that at this point doesn't lead anywhere. The arc of this party seems for the longest time to be a short morality tale, warning new players of the personal and social hurdles that they must encounter once they begin playing with other adventurers. So not unlike the Muses, Edda decides to keep Avir's head with her, but more that she can sing to it. In fact, it is heavily implied when we later revisit the Deepcroft that they had not become engaged until after she had collected this trophy from his corpse. We all know the context of the dungeon, that we are cordially invited to the sad couple's wedding. We'll assess each of the journal scraps in order, and you'll probably agree with me that the relationship is entirely posthumous. The first pertains to how small the world feels, and how grand it would be for Edda to take to the road and create a wonderful lifetime of memories with Avir. The second is of a romantic evening and a profession of love by Silvertear Lake. The third is an expression of concern that the heat of Thanel has made Avir look deathly pale, and that the bracing air of Coerthus might better preserve him. The final 3 entries concern her understanding that it is hard to be without a body, but that Edda has recently discovered a way to craft for Avir a strong body with plentiful blood and the powerful soul of a particular adventurer. The journal scraps are easy enough to decrypt. More interesting to me are the messages scrawled in blood sporadically throughout the dungeon, presumably by Edda. They read in turn, "It came," "Reply," "Whisper," "Mist," "Loss," "Bursts," "Where is it?" and again, "Bursts," before we reach the ritual circle that simply reads Avir over and over. I do not think that Edda could have spontaneously or independently become adept in an ancient and forbidden necromantic art after having for so long shown zero aptitude for the simpler art of conjuring. Nor do I think that she could have descended so far into madness without a push. Something has been whispering to her. Something has been coming in bursts. So here comes the speculation. And here's a story that is perhaps a little less creepy and a little more tragic. Edda had aspired to be an adventurer since she was a little girl. Her natural compassion drew her to the healing arts, and she had always been sensitive to the whispers on the wind, carried across from the ether to her mind. Conjuring seemed to her the most fulfilling discipline she could hope to master, but her mind did not prove to be half as stout as it was impressionable. And although she could feel the elements as a soft silk on her skin, she would have to come to terms with her mediocrity at weaving them. All the same, optimism was her friend, and many bands of young would-be heroes found themselves want for a conjurer to tend them in the field, so she found herself counted amongst the party of Avir Bravearm, having scarce begun her apprenticeship. Her fellows were of similarly slight experience, and through their early conservative forays she performed acceptably, but the members of her party had little idea of just how close even this came to her limits. During this time she developed a respect and endearment for Avir's confidence and ambition that blossomed as quickly and dramatically as you might expect from a girl of her slight age. She was soon quite besotted, and took even his harsh disparagement as an indirect or challenging display of affection. When he fell in the Deepcroft, Edda professed his guilt, but knew that she had failed, and could never have had the strength to succeed. Guilt gnawed at the paltry will that anchored her to the world, and it did not take long for it to snap. Wandering for a time, she immersed herself in a narrative romance with Avir, but as even this began to lose traction, she resolved to find a way to let him reciprocate her projected love. Somewhere between Thanelin and Coerthus, her thoughts fell upon the Amdapori, the frightening stories that her mother used to tell, and the academic acknowledgement in Gridania for great and forgotten magics that could reach into the void and reel back life. She found a way to some mouldy pieces of these forgotten tomes. If only she had not had to deal with those filthy Duskwhite smugglers to do so, she frankly felt spared that they did not offer her a meal of their cave chicken. Poring over the precious scattered volumes, a name stabbed at her and rattled her teeth. Diabolos. Here again, Diabolos, greatest of void scent, and again, Diabolos, master of life and death. Partial chapters had survived on the rituals and geometry for summoning and coercing voidsent, and although she understood that to challenge one so great while so green would be madness, power enough to give breath back to Avir would be worth a lifetime of trials. She would proceed with patience. The Duskwhite scavengers had a way into the exterior districts of the ancient Amdapor city. She followed their instruction and made her way into the ruins, desperately scouring for another scrap of knowledge. Edda thought that the spores thick in the air had caused her to faint before she realized that the wind had carried to her another voice, not the soft, rolling caress of the elementals, but a new creature, as straight and sharp as an arrow that left her blind and reeling. "Child," it beckoned. "You know that you stand upon the kingdom of Diabolos, Life-Giver, and I have known your mind. My binds have held long, but now they are weak. See yourself to relieve me, and I'll grant what you seek." Once she broke the deteriorating spell placed upon Diabolos, he instructed her of a ritual to perform at the place of Avir's death, once an appropriate host had been found, and after marking her soul that she might later prove some instrument to him, he sent her off that he might be left to brood and recover his strength. She would soon find, however, that her parley with the Voidsent was not limited to this single favour. His presence echoed in her head as she left the ruins behind, and even as she quickly prepared her ritual in the deep croft, each time she thought long upon his instruction, a wave of darkness and pain would burst behind her eyes, and was all she could do to keep a brave face for her pallid groom. When the adventurer accepted her invitation and she began to hear the battle cries echo down through the chambers, she could scarce contain her excitement. She had collected blood enough to imbue Avir's head with a ghastly, temporary host that could take the adventurer's life from them and make the transplant in little time. When Avir fell and she slipped behind, it occurred to her that she had been marked by the void already. It could take no more from her. So she would gladly descend, grasping her love, tugging at the rope that would fetch them together, soon returning united and with power enough to shake the realm. Their grand adventure together forever. I'm by no means certain that Edda has any connection or enthrallment to Diabolos. My only reasons for positing it are that the causes of his reappearance are not really made explicit, so it is at least a possibility, and that I like talking about Diabolos. We all do. If we see a reappearance from Edda, there are many forms it could take, and I don't want to pretend that I have any privy knowledge regarding where it's going. All I know is that the devs have an opportunity to set up an encounter that I have been dying to see. Like I have suggested, it would be a simple thing to have her bungee jump straight into the void before grabbing the poor, restless Avir and coming back changed.